Hello, and thank you for tuning in. You are listening to Democracy Watch on CITR 101.9 FM, the News Collective's weekly news report, bringing you alternative and undercovered news from Vancouver and the Lower Mainland. My name is Alex DeBoer.
I'm Christina Song.
And I'm Lyndon Wong.
And I'm Samuel Jones. It's Thursday, November 29th at 5 p.m. We're broadcasting from UBC's Vancouver campus on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territories of the Hunkaminam-speaking Musqueam people.
On today's show, the News Collective member Christina Song interviews UBC PhD student Zari Toledo Orozco, who discusses similarities between Christian groups in Latin America and those in British Columbia, who oppose LGBTQ rights. In this piece, Christina explores why some Christian organizations choose to focus their energy on resisting things like BC's SOGI education program, rather than focus on other, more positive tenets of Christianity.
In Otter news, we will hear a special report on Chinatown's otter at large. The otter was spotted on Saturday, 17th of November, eating the 11 of the 14 resident koi. This otterosity has left the members of the garden utterly suffering from an emotionally lost. Although the culprit isn't river otter, this incident left a lot of people very salty. Our Chinatown, our Chinatown otter seems to be acting coy and has not been spotted since. This piece will look into this more depth, but first we will have some headlines from Vancouver and the Lower Mainland.
Okay, so this past Monday, the Vancouver newly elected school board had their first meeting. One of their matters discussed was working towards their 2021 strategic plan, and this plan includes increasing the Vancouver school board budget with a focus on curriculum, assessment support, educational assistance employment, training, and more support for each school's individual budget. Additionally, the school board discussed ending taxpayer funding for elite private schools and instead redistributing those funds to the public school system. Another focus of the meeting was developing a plan to eliminate possible sources of lead contamination in school drinking water and the potential to receive funding from the provincial government. And as it stands, this is an issue that is present across the province. Currently, the Vancouver School Board is currently in a transitional period as a result of October's municipal elections.
Vancouver is set to make $38 million in empty homes taxes by the end of the year, which is mandated to be used in affordable housing initiatives. However, right away, $10 million, $7.5 for the one-time implementation, and another $2.5 million for the cost of operation have already been set aside. However, we're seeing $3.5 million devoted to improvements to SRO housing and $1 million in co-op grants, among several other more niche allocations of the funding.
All right, those were your quick headlines for today. We're now going to turn to our first piece, which I put together. This is a story I interviewed. For this story, I interviewed UBC political science PhD candidate Zari Toledo Orozco, who compares anti-LGBTQ movements in Latin America with BC's own anti-LGBTQ movements, and specifically the recent AntiSOGI fractioning we've seen. Let's take a listen. My name is Christina Song. You're listening to CITR's News Collective. 2 years ago, an education program called SOGI, or Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity, was implemented in schools across BC. Since then, a heated debate has been raging between Christian groups such as Canadian Council for Faith and Family and LGBTQ rights community. These Christian groups are upset because the SOGI education program, which explores themes including but not necessarily limited to sexual orientation and gender identity, goes against their religious beliefs. On the other side, the LGBTQ rights groups believes that SOGI will protect students who identify as non-heterosexual or not only heterosexual. When I heard about this, as someone who might roughly be characterized as a liberal Christian, I was cringing. I decried a little sheepishly. Not all of us. Every time there is an LGBTQ issue, Christian groups are split. Some groups and institutions immediately say they're opposed to it and express their consternation. On the other hand, there is usually another faction of Christians who are horrified by the fire and brimstone and homophobia. There was even a group who signed an online petition to express their support for SOGI programs in opposition to some of their Christian peers. Yet I think this anti-SOGI movement is only one aspect of a larger trend amongst religious groups to rally behind specifically right-wing causes like this anti-SOGI movement or anti-abortion movements. Controversial topics like these two are not only divisive amongst churchgoers, they are also causes that aren't central to Christian values. What I mean by that is Christianity has many moral teachings, such as the importance of helping those in need. Yet, when is the last time you heard a group of pastors rallying to raise welfare rates? It strikes me as strange that there is a much bigger push towards sexual norms than there is to assist the economically disadvantaged, a value that is much more often mentioned in the Bible. So why do these groups focus so much attention on politically right-wing values? Why foment all this controversy? Why expend all their energies on these issues when they could be better spent on things that are inarguably good? I spoke to Zari Toledo Orozco, PhD candidate at UBC, who has observed a similar trend in Latin American countries of Christian groups who oppose gender equality programs in the education systems. Let's take a listen.
My name is Sarai Toledo Orozco, and I'm finishing a PhD in political science, UBC.
Could you give me an overview of what the Con Mis Hijos No Te Metas movement is?
Yes. So this is a movement that started around 2016 in Latin America. And it's a movement that works with parents, Catholic Church, evangelists, and other Christian religions who argue that progressively we have seen what they call the gender ideology, which is the imposition through schools of certain ideas that attack principles of what each sex has to do or each sex means. Basically, they claim that schools have been progressively indoctrinating students to let them believe that gender means that they can do whatever they want, whatever they feel, and they feel threatened by this because according to the principles of the Bible and the religious beliefs, this is bad, this is what's right.
So you briefly mentioned which groups are pushing for this, but could you tell me more specifically who you think are pushing for this movement? Do you think it's the leadership in the church, or do you think that it's a much more grassroots movement?
So what we have seen in Latin America and in Spain, because this movement comes from Spain, we see that there is a coalition between very conservative groups of the Catholic Church. There's also a lot of Christians, evangelist groups, particularly for the case of Brazil, but not only. We have seen also the same in Paraguay, in Colombia, in Peru. And they have also called the attention of legitimately concerned parents who are worried about what their students are being taught at school. So, but this is basically the main people involved.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that Latin America is much more Catholic than BC, for example.
Yes, it is true. So Latin America it's very Catholic, or at least Christian, which has influenced the power of this movement. But I also have to say that there have been certain Catholic and Christian groups saying that they do not agree with this. So it's mostly the most conservative sectors of the church, of the Catholic Church, and Christian groups. The interesting thing, however, is that progressively this movement is also aligned with politicians who, in exchange for votes, are committed to the movement. So basically, they commit to not support gender equality policies, to not support or to block initiatives related with the right of abortion or feminist agendas. They are against all of that. And because the movement attracts a lot of people, especially religious people, they offer in exchange votes.
Okay, so the politicians are also kind of like taking up the issue because they think that they're getting more votes. So do you think that these groups give such an emphasis on things that are more humanitarian, such as poverty reduction or pro-refugee programs, as much as they do anti-LGBTQ sentiments?
Yes, definitely. The focus right now it's on the issues related with gender and other minority groups and other issues that are as relevant, specifically in developing nations such as Latin America, are being put aside. Actually, this is one of the criticisms that they often face. That they are highly concerned about what children are taught, or they're doing activism against women's rights. But they don't do anything for other causes that are related with these issues, such as poverty, early or pregnancies, etc.
Do you see some connection between the shrinking grip of Catholicism in Latin America with the church taking up controversial issues such as this?
Yes, definitely. We see that there is a reaction because for the first time, Latin America is pushing for different agendas that are not aligned with the Catholic Church. For instance, the issue of gender equality. Latin America has also, several countries in Latin America have implemented gay rights, feminist policies, and this poses a threat to more conservative groups. Several countries in Latin America passed the law for civil union, for instance, even before the states. Argentina, Colombia, Mexico have done a lot of progress in this regard in terms of minority rights. So obviously this is seen as a threat for more conservative groups who feel are losing some ground and support,
So, for example, 100 years ago, the church wouldn't really be talking about these issues at all.
Exactly. Yes, so a lot of analysts are saying that the fact that the churches or conservative groups feel the need to protest is already a sign that they are losing ground, because in the past they would have not even need of this. They wouldn't have to do this because their power of persuasion was so strong that they will never need to organize such large protests and public demonstrations.
Do you see a parallel between what is happening in Latin America and BC with the AntiSOGI movement?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think one point in common is that besides the agenda that these conservative groups have, these groups work with fear, and with legitimate concerns that parents might have about, okay, what is my kid being taught in school? How are they teaching him or her about sexuality? How are they teaching them about gender? So they work with these fears to tell them or to manipulate their perception that children are getting confused about that. So I definitely see the parallels and the similarities in this. Also in the case of the United States, where you also see some activism of conservative groups to say that, to alarm parents, to tell them, they're teaching your kids about an ideology, a gender ideology. They want to tell them that they can be whatever they want, and this is contributing to fears of parents. But I think another thing that they have in common is that they build on misinformation, which is why it's very, very important that ministries of education make public and make available the information on the curriculum and what they've been teaching in schools, So the fears or the concerns of parents can be addressed in a clear way and do not end up helping these conservative groups,
Do you think that the people who are churchgoers, are they benefiting from the taking up of such controversial issues?
Yes, definitely. So there is research done in Latin America, specifically in Brazil, saying that, or pointing at evangelists and other Christian groups that gather funds with using this cause, gather funds and gather money and more resources thanks to this cause, because this cause is progressively getting more and more attention, and they make money out of this. So there's definitely an economic interest also involved in this issue.
So doing the work you do and observing the loud anti-SOGI reaction, what is your reaction to this?
I think this calls us to get, definitely to civil society, to get more involved in politics, to be more informed about what schools are teaching, but also to be aware that there are changes happening, and that gender equality is something that is taking place, that is happening, and this is why we will observe the pushback from more conservative groups. So what we need to do, especially parents or relatives, is to be informed about gender equality, to talk directly with your kids, with your children about these issues, and to be aware of what schools are teaching, so no one can lie to us. No one can create or feed out of our fears.
Thank you so much, Zari.
No problem.
After our initial conversation, I got to talk more candidly with Zari about the motivations of these conservative religious groups and why their use of controversial issues has been so effective.
Because it's touching on one of the most precious things for people, which is their children. So even if you're not political, the phrase touches directly on one fear, on one powerful issue that every single person will react to, even if they're not politically active, even if they don't read the news. This is why it's so effective in mobilizing people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they make it sound as though they are indoctrinating their children, but I don't think that's particularly true. I think they are teaching their children one of the basic foundations of Christianity, which is to love one another
Equality.
And to value each other and find all
Exactly.
people equal. So
exactly. Yes.
I find this sort of like they're drumming up controversy where there is none, really.
Yes, no, absolutely. But I think, as you were saying, this 100 years ago, the church would have never done this. It's because they're in fear too. They're seeing that changes are happening. They're seeing that women are taking leadership positions. They're seeing that our knowledge and our understanding of sexuality or of other preferences are changing, and this is they're losing ground. So we can also see this as a positive thing, but we need to be alert, of course, to fight it too.
But it's not a very good long-term strategy for them, don't you think?
Well, the issue is that if we do not pay attention to this, it escalates, as it is happening in Latin America, because the organizations, especially evangelist groups, are supporting politicians who then get to power, especially congressmen and people in the legislative, who then, block initiatives for gender equality. Or block initiatives because they say, feminist policies. Just because they have the word feminist, they block those initiatives. Even
Right.
if they're positive for the country, they block it because they do not want to allow that language. So it can be very dangerous if it continues escalating and if it captures politicians.
Yes, but as a religious organization, when the churchgoers are becoming more and more accustomed to the idea of gender equality, for example, they're not going to agree with the church. And for the church to be pushing on an agenda like this, don't you think they are alienating certain factions of Christians or Catholics?
Well, as I say, we're talking about the most conservative groups, We're not talking about everybody. There are a lot of Christians that have publicly said, especially Christian politicians in Latin America and in North America, saying, I'm Christian, but I don't support this. So they're taking distance, But when it comes to the most powerful and most conservative groups, for them, this is a way to stay relevant in current society, to bring up issues. The fact that they can bring issues, that they can make, that they can politicize an issue. This is for them a way to stay alive. To say, no, we still matter. Our word, our opinion, our take on these issues still matter. That means that we're powerful somehow. So that's how they see it.
This might be taking it a little bit too general, but I find that lately this is not outside the norm. Like, not even the church, but a lot of groups which feel that they are losing relevance, they are pushing agenda, which seems so out of left wing or right wing, and they're trying to push an agenda which is not at all towards the center, which are not popular, but which gives them attention and gives them political power.
Yes, that's true. The difference here is that we're dealing with politically and economically powerful groups, because the church, the Catholic Church, is still powerful in the world, still capable to mobilize a lot of people. It has organizations everywhere, especially in Latin America. Still has the power of influence. The Pope still meets with leaders. In Latin America and in the developing world, the church is still very important. Politicians meet with Christian authorities. They look for them because that can lead to votes. So that's the difference, Mm-hmm. Not all the groups that are radical have that amount of resources, connections, money, or power of influence. Of course, in Canada, we don't see the presence of the church or conservative groups, religious groups, that are strong. But as you say, the key thing about these movements are that they work with fears, and that these fears activate people that are not political, or did not even have a say in this before. So that's what it makes it so dangerous.
Mm-hmm. So it's giving greater weight to a group that mostly, wouldn't be participating.
Yeah, so there are parents that say, okay, I'm not religious, but I think they're telling me, or I'm hearing that they are confusing my child at school. So even if I don't support the church, I'm concerned about this. I fear that what they're teaching him or her.
Mm-hmm. I thought the interview ended, and then you got into some good stuff. So, yeah, all right. Well, thank you again, and I hope that we can speak again.
Hey there, my name is Callum Ng, the Executive Director of BC Athlete Voice. We're an athlete-focused organization helping British Columbia's athletes become their best. How do we do that? Well, if you're a BC athlete, we can help you with pretty much everything related to leadership, advocacy, and education. For example, we can help you find funding, start a new athlete group, or develop better public speaking skills. It's all at bcathletevoice.ca. And don't forget to look for us on Twitter and Facebook by searching BC Athlete Voice. Check it out.
Are you a friend of ours who loves to get discounts? Come down to CITR with deals and you can count. We partnered with some local businesses, so come down to us to get your card before it's too late.
As a member of CITR Discord, you get amazing deals with some of Vancouver's finest local businesses, such as Coroner's Pub, Australian Boot Company, The Bike Kitchen, Rufus Guitar Shop, Vinyl Records, and the Cinematheque. For more information, visit citr.ca/friends.
And we're back. My name is Samuel Jones, and you are listening to Democracy Watch on CITR 101.9 FM. We just heard some headlines from Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, and a story on how Latin America and LGBTQ groups compare to BC's own AntiSOGI movement.
Now we're turning to an Otter-wise lighter story about Chinatown's wily otter. This past Sunday, an atrocious act was committed. 11 out of 14 koi were devoured in an otter-worldly affair. Now let's take a listen to this koi story.
Oh, God, yeah. And it took a long time to edit this together. In no way was this just put together.
Yeah,
Here we
no,
go.
yeah.
In no way. Here
Big
we
process.
Go. Big process.
Hello, and welcome to this lovely Thursday afternoon. Today we have two special guests in the studio representing hashtag Team Otter and hashtag Team Koi. Where do these hashtags come from, you ask? As usual, a local story. I'll hand this one over to Zoe Power and Olamide Olania.
12 days ago, on November 17th, an intrepid, pioneering young river otter courageously made its way across Pender Street in busy Chinatown and into the tranquility of the world-renowned Dr. Sun Yat-sen Classical Chinese Garden here in downtown Vancouver.
During this wild creature's reign of terror, it managed to brutally devour 11 adult fish.
Not just any fish.
Yeah, no, not just any fish. These are highly prized ornamental koi, who also carry important cultural significance. They represent perseverance, transformation, and happiness in Chinese culture. There were originally 14 adult koi in the pond, which are worth between $1,000 to $5,000 each.
As well as 344 baby koi, not yet developed into appetizing otter snack size.
Jesus. Wow. So the best loved of these fish was the delicate elderly koi Madonna, who at age 50 is a well-known and loved member of the Chinatown community, having lived most of her life in the garden.
Sure. It's a fancy, special, expensive fish. Yeah. But can we talk for a second about how special and unique this otter is? This is a very, very smart otter. This guy has made it through the treacherous traffic of downtown Vancouver. He's snuck his way into the fortress of security that is the Dr. Sun Yat-sen Garden. That place is surrounded by 20-foot-high walls, by the way. And he has evaded escape in hostile territory for 12 days straight by dodging not only the trap set up by the garden staff, but also the trap set up by an expert wildlife recovery professional, being paid $85 an hour to pursue our noble hero.
So this otter has eaten its way through not only thousands of dollars worth of koi, but a couple more thousands of dollars in park board funded wages.
Plus, he's eaten the gourmet salmon and chicken provided by these traps. This fine young otter has very expensive tastes.
The otter has not been seen since the weekend, so his current whereabouts are currently unknown. In the meantime, garden staff have been bunkering down, fortifying their defenses by installing security cameras to keep an eye on the dangerous predator's whereabouts. They're also installing metal grates and automatic closing mechanisms. They're also installing... I say mechanisms weird, okay? Mechanisms.
This is really funny.
They're also installing metal grates. And automatic closing mechanisms on the garden's doors.
Did you say automatic closing mechanisms?
Wow. So the garden also finally resorted this weekend to the drastic measure of draining the garden pond to extract the surviving koi, who will seek relocation in the safe haven of a nearby Vancouver aquarium.
This just in. In Otter news, we have an update on the good Madonna. That is to say, she has been found. Decapitated. Madonna's head was found this afternoon, identified only by the splotches on her little beautiful face, which is now detached from her body.
Holy, oh my god, my heart aches. Oh my god, woe is me. Wow, this calls for a minute of silence.
Oh, do we know about the otter fish?
All right. That you are listening to Democracy Watch on CITR 101.9 FM. You just heard a little report on Vancouver, or rather Chinatown more specifically's Wiley Otter, River Otter, that is. It was edited together very precisely, and we hope you enjoyed the high quality of that piece.
Only the best here.
Only utterly the best.
Utterly the best here. From your friends at the News Collective. Does anyone in this room now have anything to share about the River Otter or the koi?
I am personally really on the River Otter's side.
Really?
Yeah, about this entire situation. I mean, if you think about this River Otter, like
yes,
everything this River Otter has been through.
We don't really know though, because where did he come from?
Well, that's the thing we're pretty sure like that he like basically like made his way through town, I think, like
yes.
And then like gets into it like gets over a 20-foot, gets through a 20-foot wall somehow. I'm not sure like how exactly it worked. Like gets to this koi pond, evades a ton of traps. Like this otter gets what he gets. You know what I mean? Like he's earned this. Like yeah.
But I don't know if he earned it, because he got a lot of expensive fat fish. Elderly, what was it? How was it put? Delicately elderly
fish.
As our friend Olamide so
decapitated
so perfectly put.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, river otters and otters generally are a lot like weasels. I just wanted to say that.
Okay. In what way? They look like weasels?
Yeah, they look like weasels, and this is kind of a Weasley move. Am I right, Christina?
So before this episode aired, I foolishly asked whether sea otters and seals and sea lions were the same, and none of them are related to one another. Or like they are, but like they're not the same animals.
They're mammals, yeah.
They're different animals, probably from the same family of animals.
I don't know.
Once again, I love when the News Collective turns into like an informal panel of quote unquote experts, and yet none of us really knows anything about anything.
Yeah. I think my last like class where I studied anything to do with animals was literally in 10th grade. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Funny enough, the last time I studied about marine life was this Monday.
Do you tell us about?
Do tell.
Yeah.
I think no, but I have not learned about otters.
Right, marine, thus
So
ocean.
you're somewhat educated, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for sharing that, but
Thanks,
not
Lyndon.
sharing anything.
They're probably related, but
at all.
Distantly.
Perfect. We're gonna now go to a piece we played on November 14th, but it was tidied up a bit after that. And it was released on Seeking Office, our podcast, which will be transitioning into a podcast called At Large, which is news stories on Vancouver and the Lower Mainland, in the same theme and style as Seeking Office, but with a new name and image because the election is no longer happening and we are moving into the present. So stay tuned on social media for updates on that. And let's go to this piece. This was about a rally that happened at City Hall on November 14th and some profiling that was observed by rally goers. Here we go. TR's News Collective.
At large. Is that too short?
No.
At large.
From CITR's News Collective. Lola, why don't you try it?
Sick. You're listening to At Large from the News Collective at CITR.
This week, we went to City Hall for a rally in support of two motions tabled by Councillor Jean Swanson. The motions propose to end rent-evictions and support the construction of 100% social housing at 58 West Hastings Street.
Let me give you a taste of the new council. Gregor's gone. His decade is over. It's a whole new horizon for Vancouver City Hall.
Here we are in front of City Hall at 12th and Cambie, where the Vancouver Tenants Union or VTU, and the group Our Homes Can't Wait are on the steps of City Hall. Both groups fight for rent control and other renter and low-income tenant rights in Vancouver.
One is motion B4 for 58 West Hastings to ensure that the city recommit to its promise of 100% welfare and pension rate housing at 58 West Hastings. Two is an end to rent evictions. That's motion B10.
Marina Clausen. I'm a community organizer in the downtown east side as well as with the VTU.
I was wondering what you guys are here protesting exactly, specifically what are you trying to get out of today?
So it's not a protest per se. It's a rally for speaker support. So essentially, it's similar to like if you had court support that would show up and show solidarity to support the tenants that are coming forward for both Motion 4 and Motion 10. Motion 4 being to build 100% social housing at welfare and pension rate at 58 West Hastings, and Motion 10 to implement vacancy control and ban rent evictions in Vancouver. So there's two motions that are going forward that are really affecting tenants among a bunch of other motions that also will have an impact on tenants, but those are the two ones we're here to represent. So there will be tenant speakers that are coming here today to speak in front of City Hall. We've just been told that the city council is going to go into a closed session for the next 3 hours, so we were expecting that people would be able to continue to speak after this event, but it seems like they're going to go on a break, and both those motions have been tabled to hear speakers tomorrow.
I overheard you talking about how, no one should be allowed to enter certain chambers, how you were confronted by security guards. Would you mind talking about that experience?
Yeah, it's not my first time coming into City Hall for an action or to speak at City Hall. And I've experienced the security, it's not the security, the working person that is the security guard that is the problem. The problem is that they get orders from the security head. I'm not sure who's in that leadership role now, but I've had in the past security block participants from coming into this public space, City Hall, because they're concerned about protest inside that space, even though we have a legal right to do that. But they can sometimes close off people from entering the chambers, which I think is unethical.
So are there specific people that they're profiling, like members of the VTU specifically, people who are with you?
They have profiled before, especially downtown east side activists. Absolutely. This hasn't happened yet today. We know that we're going into closed session. I don't know that that's caused by the fact that there is going to be a rally here or not. I'm waiting to see why they chose to close the session for the next 3 hours. But I gotta say, there's a bunch of tenants that are not happy that it's being delayed even further to hear public speakers.
Marina had to take off, but she left us with questions about her claim, which, if you missed it, was that low-income people prior to protesting or rallying were being prohibited from speaking and sitting in on the council chambers. I approached a security guard and was referred to head of security.
So from my own experience here, the only group that I guess has been cordoned off, unfortunately, have the combination of being part of a disruptive group as well as looking as if they live on the streets or a low-income family. That's never the reason as to why they are cordoned off. This is a public space for everybody to attend. It's only to do with the safety and security of the sanctity of the council chambers as well as the safety of people in City Hall. So if they have been associated with or have been personally disruptive, regardless of skin, color, race, sexual orientation, origin, religion, anything like that, that is the only particular reason as to why they would be allowed or disallowed access into certain parts or the entirety of the building. Obviously, people get passionate. I'm never against it. I think I fight for all of this as well. It's just kind of hard being on the other side, but also feeling obviously compassionate and empathetic for what people are fighting for. I'm generally, unfortunately, even though I'm standing here, I want to be out there with them. So I see both sides of it, but I would never physically threaten someone. But I think sometimes when people are so passionate and so angry but don't have the right way to vocabulary it towards my direction, I think that perceives as anger, or that's their way of kind of just spitting it out versus I'm with them. I appreciate the passion. I think everybody has a voice and a right to say things. Just don't direct them at me, basically.
So, clearly there's a difference of opinion between security and the protesters regarding what's been going on. We were curious to find out what those rallying would think about her statements, so we went back outside. We came out of City Hall to a now much more populated rally. Several activist leaders spoke, but Vincent Tao, a member and leader of the group Our Homes Can't Wait, shared his experience regarding Vancouver City Hall in the last 2 days.
Well, no, there's several ways in which City Council has been able to, make sure that people cannot democratically participate in their government. She's also lying about that. We would roll up and we're with Vandu folks that live on the streets. We get profiled from far away and we look like poor folks, right? And then they immediately send a bunch of security guards to lock down the space. So that's like their lockdown procedure. But even in just the regular kind of workings of City Hall, their bureaucratic web structure does not work at all. They've actually made it harder for us to sign up to even speak. Their website has changed with the new government such that you could only sign up one person to speak per IP address. So that means that in the downtown east side, where typically people don't have devices, they don't have laptops, they can't sign up on their own. They need someone to sign up for them. They don't let you do that anymore. And also the time of day in which they hold these meetings where people should be speaking publicly, it's 9 to 5, literally, if not further into the day. And they don't tell you what time to come by. Right. So they're trying to make sure that no one comes. And that's how this shit happens. It's not really a democracy. If they're making it really hard, it's essentially speaker suppression or democratic suppression.
So Vincent Tao, if you missed it, made the claim that Taylor Guerin, security operations coordinator, was lying about the profiling of low-income people.
So as a third party, it doesn't really seem as though they're trying to kick you off the steps. Could you elaborate on that?
Before you guys got here, they sent out a few security guards that were telling us to get off the steps.
Oh. So we were talking to a member of the VTU, I think a very important member of the VTU, and she said that you guys were keeping it really low key. When I arrived, there were 6 people. So did you all kind of go somewhere else and then come right back? Is that what happened, sort of?
I was inside because there's still council stuff happening, but when I came out, there were about 10 people, and they were just setting up the microphone and the speaker and the AV stuff. And then, 3 security guards came out and told them that we had to vacate because we're blocking a path on these steps. And as many of the people that, were with us today were saying, it's we've been protesting on these steps for years now, right? We've never been told to get off these steps. This is public property. This is city property, and we should be able to assemble on it.
A little later on, we attended City Council chambers and sat in for a while to see what was going on as they came back from an in-camera session at 3 p.m. The new council, still breaking itself in, were discussing procedure and adding amendments to amendments while discussing the citywide plan to tackle key citywide challenges like housing affordability and densification. While listening, there was one standout moment for us, and that was when Councillor Christine Boyle of One City called a matter of urgent business to Council's attention, a motion to address biased policing in response to the profiling of Desmond Cole, a black activist and journalist who says he was profiled and carded. There was a certain irony to City Council having this conversation while those outside rallying were also claiming to have experienced profiling, in the form of having their right to demonstrate infringed upon by being asked to move from City Hall steps and having members of their organization prevented from entering the chamber. The assertion of these activists is that they have been profiled for appearing low income. This is Samuel Jones, signing out.
Thank you for listening. This story was reported by Samuel Jones and Lyndon Wong. Sound by Lyndon Wong. Editing and mixing by Christina Song and Olamide Alanian. Script by Samuel Jones and Alex DeBoer. Produced by Alex DeBoer. This story featured the song Cherry by Nectarine. Special thanks to the CITR News Collective. And we're back. This is Democracy Watch on CITR 101.9 FM. You just heard a piece we played a couple weeks ago, but it's really good, so we played it again. And we also didn't have enough content today. So we're going to be featuring some exciting stuff on the next show, which is next Thursday, as usual, at 5 p.m. I've been working on a story on community television. I did not know what community television was. It turns out it's a thing, basically local, accessible television made by volunteers, and funding for it by the Canadian Radio and Television Commission, or CRTC, has changed a lot in recent years, so that essentially funds have been moved from community television channels into local news production. And this has basically resulted in the closing of almost all community television stations in the Lower Mainland and in a lot of urban centers across Canada. So I'll explain more about this and why it matters on the next show. So stay tuned for that. Other than that, does anyone have any final words here? Lyndon, Sam, Christina?
I wish the Otter much luck.
Christina wishes the Otter luck. Which
to
team?
Call his attorneys.
Nice, Lyndon. Great. Sam, which team are you on?
I'm really on Team Otter here.
He's like firmly on
I
Team
hope that
Otter.
Otter gets away and then comes back and does it again. That's how Team Otter I am.
God.
Yeah, I'm like this Otter.
Yo, those fish are expensive.
Yeah, and this otter deserves the best fish because it is the most skilled otter in existence. Okay,
but they have installed now a gate and also a security camera.
Not enough.
Not enough.
We're gonna need a security guard.
You're gonna need an army.
Oh my god. Yeah, I wonder if there's any particular animal that like hunts river otters. That we could have.
We're gonna introduce
We're gonna have like a moat around. Or just hunters, you know, just like at the hanging out, ready to shoot the otter.
Yeah, just call some
or
grizzled
guards,
old
I could have
mountain
said.
folk. Come shoot the otter.
This is what happens when we don't have a script.
Yeah. I say.
Hopefully we didn't offend anyone. All right. Have a super night. Tune in next week at 5 to Democracy Watch. You're listening to CITR 101.9 FM. Next, we have No Dead Air. So stay tuned for that program. All right.